we'll be going through this. I think it's PPTs are still visible, right?
Yes,
So starting with the buttons, we know that in computer applications, this kind of control plays a lot of role, right? Uh, I mean, we know that how much importance it has. So when it comes to buttons, we know that it like that is nothing a entry point for some kind of action most of the time, uh, through which we can take some actions, through which we can do some selection, we can do some editing with respect to some value or saving. When started with what we need to understand in this case, what are the general guidelines generally we need to understand. So when we are talking with the general guidelines, even in the last module also, or in menu bar, third module also we have seen. So all these components which we are studying with respect to user interface or with respect to graphic interface, all these components like menu bars, and in last topic we have studied about Windows and related to Windows. We have to understand the general guidelines with respect to this components, all these components, right? So in general guidelines, generally it will come what is the use of that, what is the, I mean, purpose of that, description, general description, advantages, data, disadvantages. Then mostly the, if some, for with respect to some components, we need to understand the operation, we need to understand the location, we need to understand the uh, more like layout kind of organization of that, with respect to the guidelines, general guidelines which are given, which not necessary we can follow everywhere. It's a possibility. We cannot go for the same guidelines, but in general we are following guidelines. So now when it comes to the operable controls, and in that we'll start with the button. We see in animations many buttons will be there, which will be generally for insert, delete, exit, submit, right? All those are nothing but which are created as a buttons, and through which when we'll click on those buttons, it will initiate some action. When we click on the insert, it will take whatever the data available on the screen, and that data it will insert into the database. Delete also, whatever the row has been selected or whatever the content or the data has been selected, it will take that value and it will initiate the action for deleting that value from the database. So it's something like it which initiates the action, right? So when it comes to the description part of the label, we are saying that it's a square or rectangular shape control with label inside that indicates the action to be accomplished, and the label may consist of text, graphics, or both. So even when we see that submit or exit or save button, many times for the save button, either we can write the label as save, or we can write the label instead of text. We can put a graphic where there is a save option, will be save icon is there, right? Generally that save icon will be there in the everywhere. So that save icon we can put it as a instead of text, or we can put both also. So combination of, and generally the buttons will be of square or rectangular shape. So there are sometimes we'll go for a more artistic view or more different view where we can give the different shape of buttons also. But as we are from the our uh, before digital era also, whatever our electrical buttons are there, which is vertical on off buttons, so generally we have a specific mindset with respect to the buttons, and that's what we will follow, the square or rectangular shape of buttons, right? So what is the purpose of this? Just to start the action, to change the properties, to display a pop-up menu, something like that. And then going to the uh, what is the proper uses of that? to cause something to happen immediately, to display another window, to display a menu of options, or to set a mode of property values. So purpose and proper uses is almost same. It's not very different from that. It is little elaborated in the proper uses. So advantages, disadvantages, we can use our kind of common sense to write this also, because we have seen many applications, or you people have created also many applications at the mini project level also, in the computer graphics or DBMS also, and in web application subjects also, where you have created the mini projects where you have used all these controls, buttons and all, right, menus, buttons, and all windows, all these things you have used. So you know the background, of little background at least you have, right? So what are the advantages? Always visible, reminding one of the choices available. So when it will be on the screen, it will be visible to user, and it will remind user that these are the choices available, like insert, delete, submit, save, exit, kind of things are the actions which are available, and you have these choices to do your applications. Then the next advantage is convenient. The third advantage is can be logically organized in a work area. So in the work area, you can logically organize, means there is a the complete display area. In your display area or in your work area, you have a work which is with respect to taking the data, taking the input of the data from the user. You can there you can just have only the button with respect to insert or exit, or insert or go back somewhere where you wanted to get a confirmation whether the data is okay or not, or you need to uh, rearrange it, or you need to edit it. Then you can have the button only with respect to edit and back, right? So logically you can organize the buttons in your work area, can provide a meaningful description of the action that will be performed. So that's true, because whatever the names, titles you are giving to the particular button should be the same as the action it will initiate. If I'm asking for insert, and below that if I'm doing the delete operation, the action will start for deleting the operation, then it's not a correct. So, or if I'm giving a button with the name of some name which is, let's I say XYZ also, no one will understand what this XYZ button will do. So generally we'll give a meaningful title or meaningful description of the action which that particular button is performing. Then larger size generally provides faster selection target. That this is true, because even small buttons, just to take a pointer of your mouse or of your cursor to there and click on exactly in the center, sometimes it takes more time than the larger, if the buttons are in the larger size, right? Then the next is can possess 3D appearance. So if you have a 3D appearance for your buttons, definitely it will be pleasing to see, right? Aesthetically, it looks nice on the screen, and then it provides a visual feedback through a button movement when activated. So even if you have a 3D appearance of the buttons, if you click on the button, so it will give that visual appearance where the button is pressed, right? And when you will leave the the button, I mean that if you unpress your key, then it will show that the button is popped up. I mean it's at the normal position. So it will give that visual impact of the how the button exactly work in our hardware buttons in our house. Same way it will give that visual impact, right? So if it can possess a 3D appearance which will give more pleasing view. Then the next is may permit use of keyboard equivalents and accelerators also. You can give in for your buttons actions, you can give keyboard equivalents also. Like if there is a button of cut or exit or insert, delete, you for all these buttons you can give a keyboard equivalence. Keyboard equivalent means what? You can make, if it is supposed for it's a button for copy, or let's say it's a button for exit, so you can make it as for exit some keyboard equivalent, like you can make that E, capital E, as a mnemonic, and if you press Control E, it will exit from the application, or it will exit from that current page or something like that. Or you can make the accelerators where through directly from the keyboard you can press Control E and it will work. So you can put, you can allow for buttons. So whenever you are creating the buttons, you can set the properties of the buttons. While setting the properties of buttons, you can set the properties, some of the properties which is with respect to this keyboards, where you can give the keyboard equivalents. You can mention what are the accelerators if the button is initiated from the keyboard. So if I press a Control X or Control E or Control C, that particular action should start. No need to take my mouse pointer on the particular, on the top of that button and then click on that. It's not required. Directly through a keyboard also, by using a keyboard accelerators, the same action should happen, right? And the last advantage is what? Faster than using a two-step menu bar pull down sequence. So it is faster than a menu bar, because in menus also will be available in, sorry, in menus also we will have, or it will be available all these options, all these actions, insert, delete. You can keep in as per your application. You can prepare, you will be having a menu bar where you need to have all these actions in your menu bar also. But the in menu bar it is two step of action, because you need to first go to the menu, click on the main menu, then go to the sub menus, in that whichever it is applicable, go into that. So it will be a step by step process where you need to reach to that particular action. But if you have for that particular exact button on your screen, you can directly click on that. So it is faster than the using through a menu bar, right? So these are the advantages what we have seen with respect to buttons. Same time, it has disadvantages also. So what are the disadvantages? The first one is consumes screen space. Yeah, it consumes a screen space, and more than the screen space, it consumes your working area, right? It consumes your display area, working area, where you're actually supposed to be work in your application. So it is consuming a screen space, because same action you can take, you can initiate through a menu bar also. But this will give you, buttons will give you a faster response. So you, some of the buttons where those are some of the actions which required frequently, or which is with related to that particular of function, you can assign the buttons related to that function, right? For example, if I am working in any database, and in that database, if my particular, that particular function is with respect to insertion of the data, so I can have a button with respect to insert and something like back and exit kind of buttons with respect to only that screen. Some other screen is there where it is insert is not required. You are only retrieving the data, or you are only viewing the data, where the insertion is not allowed. Then you should not have a action, or you should not have a button related to insert, right? So depends on your work, depends on your function which the application is doing in that particular page, in that particular part. As per that you can put the functions, but what will have, I mean, in the, as per that you can put the buttons. But in menus, what we'll have in menus, almost all the actions which we required with respect to the application will be having, right? So even though the actions we can initiate it through a menus also, we can keep these buttons and it will consume your screen space. Then the size limits the number that may be displayed. So this is also correct. Then requires looking away from main working area to active. And the final disadvantage is saying that requires moving the pointer to select. So it's true, it is not voice generated where you say that click the exit button. It's not like that. You need to take your pointer, you need to take your pointer to move to that particular button, and then you need to click on that button. So that is also one disadvantage. Now you can see there are different kinds of buttons which diagrams are given, and you can see the structure of every button. The way the first are all command buttons, you can see here this is different than this is very flat 3D view has been given, where this is middle of this cancel and OK. So all these kinds of buttons are available, we can use as per our requirement of our application. uh, you can change the colors, you can change the size of buttons, you can change here. All the labels are only the text labels, but you can use the icons also. Instead of OK, you can go for the some icon of for the OK, which gives the meaning of the OK, right? Then which here cancel, you can use help, you can use some icon, but it should have that icon should have meaningful. Now you can see that the bottom, this save button here, we all know that by working so many applications, we all know that this is the button which is used for saving the contents. But is it possible for the novice user? Is it possible for the new user, whether he can understand what it means? If you just think our old generations, if they are working on some applications and they are not so much with the computers, and some application open in front of them and these buttons are there, whether they will understand this. In that case, if instead of this icon, if you put the text saying that save, yes, definitely they will understand, right? So here also there are, apart from this also there are so many different buttons. This is for open, this is for play, this is for pause, this is for stop, this is for pause, right? How we came to know all these buttons? Once we are work on the number of applications and all, then we are understanding all these things. Otherwise in a first go, even we don't understand the meaning of that icon, right? So if it is your application will be used by the expert people who are already knowing with the computers a lot, you can go for such kind of icons. But if it is not for such kind of users, then it's better to use the text labels, which is like written one, OK, cancel, like this written. Better to go for this. This takes less space comparatively to such kind. I mean, if you see compare over here only, but here moving from this to this, not only moving, just clicking somewhere here, it will be fast than this, because the width is small, right? The width of each of the icon is small, and you can see that in this is actually the buttons which is on the menu bar. It's a toolbar, right? It's a menu bar or it's a toolbar without labels, but icons are nothing but the labels here. And you can see that this first button and second button is one group, and in between there is a space. Then you can see that this open and new or save button is one group, and then there is a space. Then these two buttons are one group, which is with respect to, I think, tables and all. So this is one group. Then you can see, then there are after here two buttons, and then there are three buttons are there. So all these three buttons belongs to one logical group, because this is for play, this is for uh, stop, this is for pause, something like that. So all this belongs to one logical group, and then this after that there is a one space, and then next group is there. So you can see that whenever you are putting on the toolbars also, if it is logically related, we are combining those buttons next to next, right? So this is there, and this is completely symbol, where the symbol is inscribed in the inside the button, right? So these are the different kinds of buttons, some examples. So apart from this, there is a command button. So command buttons are almost all the buttons are for initiating some actions. Some of the buttons which will not initiate some action, but maybe will perform something else, right? So these are the command buttons. We'll stop here now with respect to command button.